Welcome to Dynamo's Dozen, the podcast that I bring you each and every single week, where I talk about whatever may be on my mind, from pro wrestling, sports, entertainment, music, movies, muesli, fresh socks and jocks, and everything in between, never forgetting the talc. This is Dynamo's Dozen. I am your host, and I am joined today by Jonathan Odawar, my man, from halfway down the country in Limerick, if I am correct. For all you Americans, say it right, Limerick.
The real capital.
Isn't that Cork? But yes, he is from the Pro Wrestling Defined podcast. He's got some great interviews, great shows up on YouTube. Killing it at the moment. He has already been on the Dynamo Podcast Network with my right-hand man, Niall Hogan, on the Upper Tier podcast, talking about football, wrestling, and the Ultimate Warrior. And he is here today to talk about something that we came up with. And you being the guest, Jono, I'm going to call you Jono. It's we're Irish. We better do it.
All good? Yeah, all good by me, man.
We decided we'd try and think of something that is quite current at the moment, because you were obviously talking to me about some of the shows that we had done on obviously the Four Podmen and on Dynamo's Dozen recently, because there is quite a divide in a good way, a good divide at the moment. And the topic of conversation is talking about who really are the best guys on the planet at the moment. And this actually fell into our lap, considering the whole Meltzer Awards, as I call them, the Meltzer Awards, because that's exactly what he is. He's welcome to come on the show any day of the week and tell me why I'm wrong, but he will lose.
I will be tuning in to see that, my friend.
He will lose. Yeah, I think many people have been waiting to tune in for this one for over 3 years.
Yeah,
he was going to do it at one point and then he didn't. So I'd love to know if you heard some of the stuff. But no, that's we're segueing and I digress. Why don't you explain today what we are going to talk about?
Yeah, we're going to talk about who we think is some of the best talent, some of the best workers in the business currently in the business at the moment, and kind of break that down. What are the strengths? Why we rate them, and so we'll have a chat and break that down.
Yeah, and of course, starting off with a little bit of business, today's podcast, as always, is sponsored by Wrestling Mania, Ireland's only wrestling shop, your one-stop shop for all your pro wrestling and MMA needs. And in fact, anything memorabilia-wise in the world of professional wrestling.
Where I got the hat.
Yeah, Niall is the man that can get it for you. If he doesn't have it in the shop, he can source it for you. And of course, because we can't go into shops at the moment, all of his business is done online. At the moment, the Facebook is down for maintenance. However, Niall is available for anybody to contact through WhatsApp, through me, if you need to go through the Dynamo Podcast Network. If any of Jono's fans are out there and are looking for stuff as well, message Jono. We can always put you in the right direction. But that is it for today. When it comes to our sponsorships, big shout out to WrestleMania. Like I say, always doing great things and always there to get you whatever you need when you need your fix of wrestling merch. So I suppose also to take care of another bit of business, why don't you, we'll do this twice. I always like to do it at the start and the end of a show, just to give people a nice little taste of what you're about. You obviously have a channel. How long has it been going for? What's it about? You've had some good guests on thus far, should I say. And you kind of basically taking something that started a long time ago, even with something like Dynamo's Dozen, and you made it your own kind of little baby there on YouTube, and you've been killing it on YouTube actually.
Thanks, man. It's my channel is called Pro Wrestling Defined. I started it just last summer. I did my first interviews last summer, but I didn't start airing everything until about October. Yeah, so late last year I started it. Had Dill the Patriot Wilkes on the show. He was my first guest. I've had Black Bart, Sam Houston, Nikita Koloff.
Del Wilkes fucking blackballed me, the bastard.
Who did?
Del Wilkes, he blackballed me. No, he didn't.
Really?
He didn't blackball me. He just never responded. I was like, all right, fair enough.
Okay. When about was that?
Oh Jesus, this is probably about 2 years ago. To be fair, he's probably only come out of the woodwork now, really, has he?
Yeah, see, like he has his own podcast. He does kind of a Facebook Live podcast every Sunday now. So like he was promoting that. So yeah, I got him at a good time, and
a lot of guys are like that now, actually, aren't they? Like they kind of start getting into the world of Facebook Live, and they're kind of probably a little bit more open to communication in that sense, which is kind of cool as well.
Exactly. Yeah. See, they kind of want to promote all that, and see, there's the network like with Dell. There's like Glacier, Don Morocco. They're all kind of on the same network.
Glacier's been on Dynamo's, doesn't actually. Me and Glacier actually were meant to meet up when I was in Orlando 2 years ago. We were going to meet up for a beer, and it just, whatever way, we were in different parts of town at that point. But yeah, we still kept in touch. Actually, he's a really good guy.
Yeah, he's really, really cool. All right. Yeah, he's somebody that I'd like to have on Pro Wrestling Defined as well.
And he would too. Yeah, he would too. He's really open to that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's really cool, and it was an awesome gimmick as well. Like that was a really, yeah, it was awesome. Like the visual of that was so super cool.
It was worth it, wasn't it? It was worth it. Like.
Oh, 100%. Like, yeah. So mainly the channel is basically, it's mostly interviews. I mean, I've been talking about like starting some reviews and things like that with a while, and it's just, for me, I'm one of those people. I need like a light bulb moment, and then I'll just start, like, I'll have something in my head for quite a while. Like even the channel itself, I've been meaning to do something like that with years, like, but I just, like I was saying to Niall before, like, putting the wrestling dream behind me was tough, like, because I wanted to become a wrestler so bad. Just couldn't happen for me physically because of the condition I have. Like, so it just, once I kind of had that kind of tucked away, I just didn't want to touch anything wrestling related because it was just too tough. Like, I went into acting.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, I went into acting because that was the closest thing, I could get to it. You're telling a story, but without the physicality. Like you're eliciting emotion, and you're doing all that kind of stuff, but you're not destroying your body in the process. Like, so yeah. With long story short, so after years of procrastinating, finally started last year, and yeah, it's been going pretty well. I mean, like you with your channel, you've kind of set the benchmark here, yourself and Jerry Coughlin as well with Sports Matter. I suppose better give him a shout out as well. But like you've really set the benchmark on all of this stuff. Like, you've been at it a long time, like, and so I figured it's about time I get my ugly mug in it now as well.
Well, I know, I appreciate those kind words, man, and it's always good to kind of see somebody kind of following their dream of doing that as well. And you've got a really good you've got a nice kind of tone about you as well, and a good kind of vibe about you too. So I always enjoy seeing people, just follow their dream. You know what I mean? It's accessible to everybody now as well. And I think the really important thing when people start out, if I was to give anybody advice, especially, with us running the network side of things as well, is never shut doors in people's faces and think, that you don't need anybody, because I mean, here's two people talking who do similar type of shows and stuff like that. And like you mentioned, I've been doing it a long time, but like, it'd be easier for me to be the bitter old man going, who's this fucking bastard? Being the guy in the corner. And but just I'd always give that advice to everybody. Somebody can always help you in some way, shape, or form, and it's always good to interlink with people and cross promote. So I'm very, very happy to have you on here, and very happy to see you doing really well with the show as well. So let's get on to today's show, though. This is going to be interesting because we talked about this. You would ask me about the whole, because obviously people know I'm very biased, and it comes across on the Podman, it comes across on this show, with Coach Devitt, as I call him, but in Balor, I'd be like, oh, he's so biased against it. But like, yeah, it's not just because I'm from Bray. It's not just because we know each other. It's also to do with the fact that he's fucking pretty awesome. So yeah, I suppose he's a good one to start with, because I do think pound for pound at the moment, if there is such thing anymore in pro wrestling, I like to kind of go back old school and use the pound for pound analogy. You know, I always had, you know, Dynamo Kid and Bret Hart as my guys that were, you know, the best bell to bell, best stories in the ring. You know, very different workers, of course, but from that kind of same style. So I look at Finn Balor at the moment, and I kind of see, right, what can this guy not do? Like, can he actually make a mistake at the moment? Can he be almost human in the ring? And I don't see it at the moment. It's you know, even the latest match with Pete Dunne, you know, little things that I notice from being in a ring, you know, where Pete Dunne kind of, you know, botches kind of, if you want to use that word that all the supermarkets like to use nowadays, and the backflip, and straight away Balor onto the knee. Do you know what I mean? And making it look like that the knee went out, and that's the reason that he failed at that attempt. And then you're thinking, shit, did he actually botch that, or was that a spot? That's the art.
Oh yeah, 100%. And a lot of that, like, as well, is being able to work on the fly then as well, because that's kind of a lost art now as well, because everything is so well. Look, I'm talking to somebody from looking from the outside in, but yeah, I mean, we always hear that everything is so laid out beforehand. You know, I don't want to use the word choreographed, that's not the right word, but you know, that they have the match pretty comprehensively laid out beforehand about
they have
what
a blueprint.
They're going to do. Exactly. So that's a pretty unique talent today, to be able to call things on the fly and just get that instinct to kind of compensate for you know a potential mistake somebody else has made, or something like that. And little things, like I was watching like one match of his that I was really impressed with was the match he had with like, I love the one pretty much since his return. I mean, all of his work has just been outstanding, but I really loved the one he had with Timothy Thatcher last year. That was awesome. I love the pace. It was a very gradual build, and there was a beautiful story told where I think Timothy was the see, I watched it last week. Some of the stuff is a bit jumbled in my head now, but he was kind of telling the story of working on Balor's leg, and then like later on Balor hits the coup de grace, but he sells the leg, like he didn't get it perfectly, and then he hits him with the DDT for the finish. Like, I love like little things like that, like, because I hate sometimes you'll see it in matches when somebody's working on a body part, and they could be working it for a while after doing something really devastating, and then the guy gets up and does something, you know, an offensive move with that very body part. Like,
I'm not mentioning names. You know, I know exactly where you're going with this, because I called it out on the NXT review with Johnny Gargano and Johnny Wrestling. Like, you know, he was selling.
Oh, really?
And then all of a sudden, the hand went up, and he's like going, and he's fine into the camera, playing character again. And then you know, on the very same show, at the end, you see Balor literally couldn't even hold the belt because the hand was that bad. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
And that should be the same all the way back to the curtain. You know what I mean? It should be the same all the way back to the curtain.
100%.
You know.
Yeah, that's a big pet peeve for me.
I don't even see guys anymore being disappointed. Like, you know, you're a football man as well, and I know we're not going to cover football in this, but you know, when you see genuine players distraught, you know, after losing a match, and they're fucking walking down the tunnel, and it's like, it's really bothering them. You know what I mean? I'm a big hockey fan, and like, you see guys in the hockey rink, you know, and they're coming off and they're fucking almost fighting on the way out, just because they're so pissed off, because it means that much to them. I'd like to see more of that in wrestling too. Guys been not just like, oh, well, you know, I gave it my best shot and I'll just go back to the locker room now. Guys been genuinely like, you know, not just a head down, oh, my arm, I'm going to do the usual sell the arm. And like, well, the guy wasn't working on your arm during the match. Why are you selling the arm? You know, but genuine fucking frustration, you know, kicking bottles or something, or, you know, don't see
who was the king of that in a very subtle way as well. You mentioned him earlier as one of your top workers of all time. Yeah, Bret, he was the king. That's what made him a SummerSlam 92. I mean, he didn't steal the moment away from Bulldog per se,
no,
but at the same time, you noticed, you felt sympathy for him. I didn't like Brett as a kid when I was watching it, so I was going for Bulldog in that match.
This show is over now.
Yeah, no, I'm the biggest Brett mark in the world now for his work. But yeah, as a kid, see, the thing was, like, everybody here, he was everybody's favorite, and Undertaker was mine, so I just resented him from that standpoint.
Yeah, but, I'm kidding, of course.
Oh, I know. But yeah, he was so good at that. But I think a lot of that was real for him as well, because he took it, and I mean this in a positive sense. A lot of people kind of put it in a pejorative way, like, oh, he took the business too seriously. He took himself too seriously.
It'd be nice if more guys did now, wouldn't it?
Exactly, 100%. I mean, that's the art. Like, I mean, you have to become that person. You have to feel it. Like, I mean, Jesus, imagine if Undertaker was half-assed doing, the dead man gimmick back in the way. It would have never worked. Like, he had to become that person. It's method
acting, dude. You mentioned acting earlier. I mean, you look at guys like Mickey Rourke, who was my personal favorite actor. These guys go into their own world. Even at home. So.
Yeah, exactly. Jack Nicholson as well. Maybe he went a little bit overboard with the whole wolf thing. That
he lived the gimmick. Yeah,
yeah, he really did. But I think he'd probably Jack Nicholson would probably be my number one. Mickey Rourke and Denzel are probably my other guys on that front.
Too good.
Yeah, definitely. But oh crap!
Oh, we're all good.
1 sec.
Corona has attacked your phone. The virus is in digital.
Now everybody knows the secret. I use my phone to record these. Quality is still good though.
That's all good, man. It's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. What were we saying?
No, we were just talking about you. We were kind of mentioning about being real, and I think that's actually a pretty good segue in terms of that, because that's why I've mentioned that. I see, even though they're two completely different styles, I see a lot of that old school Bret Hart kind of in Finn Balor. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
How he takes it. Like, even sometimes when he wins, he does that little football chant, you know what I mean? And he's like, it's like, yes, I actually just achieved something, rather than like, oh, yeah, guess what? We have riders in the back that literally told me that I'm going to win this, and I'm going to put my hand up and do the token chant. Hello, everybody. Bye-bye. On to the next show. It's and that's what we're really gonna pinpoint today and talk about some of the guys that we think are the best. I mean, we obviously mentioned Balor. We won't just make the show completely about him, but I think we're probably would we be both in agreement to say that we think that bell to bell he is the best in the business at the moment, or would you like to kind of counter that with anybody?
It's not so much a counter. I'm just not sure I'm not sure who I would say is the very best now. There's 3 guys for me, probably 4 even, that are on that same level. Finn is one of them.
Yeah, let's go through your guys then. Yeah, I like that.
I think that Finn is one of them for pretty much everything we just said. His selling is superb. It's consistent. Like we were saying, like that's such a pet peeve of mine. Like, when people seem to leave that go during the match. The stuff is the only thing I wish he'd drop is that backwards bicycle kick. I hate it.
You're not a fan.
No, it never looks convincing to me. I mean, there's been a few times where he hits it kind of decently, but I don't know. It just always comes off soft.
I think the guys selling it usually pussies out a little bit too, though.
They need to bend down more. I think. It's kind of, maybe it's an unnatural, like physiologically, it's kind of unnatural for him to bend when he's in front of them or something like that. Something just doesn't mesh right when he does it. That's my absolute only criticism.
That's a good point, because in fairness, like he could probably do it in a way where say, like when Arn Anderson used to do the fake punch and then he'd lower your head into the DDT. You could probably do that in a sense where, like, he's caught someone like that bending down, selling the stomach or something, and then fucking just whack them over the back of the head. Because if you get that full extension over the back of the head, it looks a lot more
Exactly, yeah, because like I said, like there's been a few times where he has hit it good, but for the most part, yeah, I just don't like it. So that would be my only criticism. But
which is fair. If that's an only criticism, he's doing pretty good.
Exactly, like that's a pretty strong point. But the only reason I wouldn't necessarily put him number one is because he's done well on the main roster, but he's still working on NXT. Whereas like McIntyre and Roman have been doing it at such a high. I mean, everybody to a certain extent, that mightn't be necessarily a fair thing to hold against anybody because
of no
crowd. Yeah, everybody's kind of on the same level to a certain extent. But I think Drew was so pivotal. He does certain things that I wish he'd do less at times. Just because of his size and his presence, I'd like to see him do a little less and give a little less.
Makes sense.
But again, that's being very nitpicky. Like I think pound for pound, if there was a gun to my head and I had to say somebody, I'd probably say Drew because he did such a great job last year of carrying the main roster through the pandemic era, as it's called. So like if I was going to the head, I'd probably say Drew, Roman, or Finn. But I think because Drew was champion for the most part of last year, I think, and his work was so solid. Like all of his matches were really, really good. And, same thing with him. Anything that, any critique you could give is very nitpicky. I mean, his stuff looks very good, very solid. He's a good seller, especially for his size. I wish he would just sell less. That he would give less to his opponents because he's so big and, he gives a good credible vibe as well. He's not a guy that comes off as a big guy trying to play a wrestler. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He gives a good credible vibe, I think. And so they would be, I'm going to give an outside of that. Like he's not, in my number one category, but like, one honorable mention I'm going to give to somebody. He might be like, if I was to do a top 10, he'd like maybe be like my 5 or 6, is The Miz. Because, let me explain.
You're going to have to.
Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, on first glance, when I say that, people probably think like, oh, when was the last time he had a 5-star match? Or, he's not a great worker or whatever. I would counter that. I think he's a very underrated worker. He's so able.
Well, he's actually, the thing is, and I'll come to kind of your aid in that one actually. The Miz, that's the thing. Miz can work because that's the whole idea. It's not all about working. A lot of people misconstrue working for technical ability. That's not.
Yeah.
Not, working is being able to work the crowd, being able to work the storyline, and the Miz in terms of being able to make you hate him is purely down to his working ability, his facials, the things that he does, queen moves, his promos and stuff like that. So without a shadow of a doubt, like the Miz, you're definitely not wrong there. So sorry. Continue.
Yeah. See, like the reason why he really stuck out to me recently is because I've always been a big fan of him because one reason is he knows his role so well and he's so great at it. He's so good at playing a coward heel, on a pretty deep level as well, because he's done it for so long, but yet you can still interject him into high profile stuff and it's still good. He was, again, the reason why he stuck out to me recently is because like he became champion and then like, was it last week's show where he lost the title to Lashley? He basically carried the whole show. He starts on like the promo he did backstage with Shane, where he's trying to cower out of the match. It's so good. Even when he's supposed to have the match and he runs away, and he just played the role. I mean, show me a lot of other guys on any of the rosters that could do that. That could have like 4 or 5. Key segments in a show and carried them all. And then at the end, I mean, like everybody took great pleasure out of
Jericho's the only guy that can come to mind that would be able to pull that off realistically.
Maybe. Yeah, I think he probably could. But I think sometimes my only thing with Jericho is it becomes too acty. I know I'm not sure that's even a word, but like it is like with Miz, you believe that he's this chicken shit that's just trying to get out of this, and
Okay,
he's being
yeah. No,
smarmy.
I hear what you're saying. I hear what
you
you're
know
saying.
what I mean. Whereas with Jericho,
But
it just seems a bit more. It seems a bit more acted. I think just in those terms. I mean, Jericho is one of the best ever in a lot of regards. But I just think in those terms, I think Miz is very special in that regard. And you were so anxious to see him get his comeuppance. And even that, like the way he sells and everything. I mean, he's fantastic. I think he doesn't get his due at all. And he knows his role. It seems like everybody tries to be the show stealer now. Like everybody is trying to be like Shawn Michaels. Know your role in the card. I mean, he's been doing his role so great with so long, so consistently, and they interject him then in the right moments and use him at the right times, and he's great at it. And so sorry, go ahead with what you were going to say there.
No, you're 100% correct. I think the Miz is definitely underrated in that sense, but I do think he's a mid-card guy, and by that I mean, if the Miz, okay, he's got a couple of things against him. To be like, if you wanted to be in that JBL role where like you're hated constantly and you're just going to be the guy that's hated, he's not big enough for that. Do you know what I mean? So he's
yeah.
So he's not believable enough in the sense that he can kick your ass enough times to keep getting away with things, is what I mean. All right.
Yeah.
Whereas JBL is. Because when JBL was having those feuds with, Eddie Guerrero and Batista, he's a big enough guy, big fucking Texan that does have a mean streak in there that can actually hurt you. I think when the Miz has his mean streak, I think it's forced, much like what you were saying with Jericho. Whereas Jericho looks like he can have a mean streak and has done, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think for the Miz, it's like, he's playing tough guy, and then that doesn't work for me. Mm-hmm. So I do agree. The Miz is kind of in one of those unfortunate situations where, like, he is. I mean, he's one of the most consistent guys on the roster. He's never injured. He's never hurt. Thank God. Which is great. I can see why you would want to put your belt on that guy, but at the same time, that's obviously why they've never pulled the trigger with him, because he doesn't have that mean streak. Versus, say, somebody went like CM Punk when he was around, for example. He has that mean streak. He has that look of a guy that is from the street and could just fuck you up. You know what I mean? Was the Miz
that kind of goes to the point I was making, that like he knows his role.
Exactly.
Yeah. He knows his role, and when he does that, like you said, the few times he's kind of done that where he's tried to kind of play a tough guy, it doesn't work. But I think he's probably learned from that, because they haven't done anything like that with him. So he's great. He knows, he plays to his strength. He knows, like you were saying, like he's never going to be the guy per se, but yeah, he's smart enough to know that, like, if he does what he does good enough, he's going to get interjected into those top spots every so often, mainly as a transition to crown somebody else. And like,
he's
that's
dependable,
great.
though. He's dependable.
Exactly. But see, that's not a bad thing. Look at the longevity of his career, because nobody is very few are going to be used as the number one top face of the company consistently throughout their career. I mean, Cena is kind of the only one that kind of came close to that, but even he had his ebbs and flows here and there. Taker as well. So like, I think that should be the goal for anybody's career. Know your spot, get great. I mean, be as versatile as you possibly can be. But like, if you are kind of typecast in a sense, run with that and be the best you possibly can be at that. And I think that was my argument for The Miz. He just really stuck out because of that. I thought he was just so outstanding on that episode of Raw. Like, so few guys. You are right about Jericho, kind of thinking back now. Like, he is versatile enough and everything to do that. But yeah, there's so very few guys to do that. So that's kind of why he stuck out to me recently.
I'd agree with that. I suppose if we look at some other guys. I mean, I'm going to throw in Randy Orton in there. I mean, he could also be in the mix for pound. As the. I mean, I never see Orton does not hit a bum move ever, unless he
No.
decides to throw you and just fuck with you a little bit. But he doesn't hit bum moves. So believable in whatever he decides he wants to be in. I mean, I do think he's probably the most naturally gifted in terms of all the big men. He's the most naturally gifted in ring, but also believability. I mean, he's in shape 24/7 all year long. He's always ready to go. He gives the vibe that he doesn't give a fuck, but evidently he does. You know what I mean? He's kind of got that Phil Anselmo from Pantera type. Yeah, fuck you, man. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
yeah, sure.
He is. But you know, behind it, he has grown into the consummate professional, and you know, the guy that is there for the company. I think you're gonna see many more title reigns for him. They might be short, they might be stop-starty, but I think Vince and H know that he's going to be their guy that eventually breaks the title record. You know what I mean? Because he's been.
I hope so. Yeah,
and he will. I mean, he's too young not to. His body is still relatively fresh for his age, and thankfully, some of the injuries he's had haven't taken too much of a toll on his body. You know, compared to someone like Edge, say, for example. But I think Orton definitely has a shout for being, at this moment of time, at least in the top 3.
Oh, definitely. Like I would actually put him, like I wasn't going to put him in my list because he would be in my kind of top 10 best ever list.
Oh, me too. Yeah. Me too.
I think like for me, like the ones I wanted to kind of focus on were kind of not necessarily younger guys, but kind of guys that have kind of came into their own in the last couple of years or so.
Let's look at this year then alone. If you want to do that, let's actually look at it. Right, Cody is someone I want to mention. Everyone that knows this show knows how big a fan I am of Cody, and even though AEW is getting blasted for this and that all the time, people need to remember AEW is still a baby company. You know, they really are. Like, I mean, they're only a little over 2 years old. Like, it's so, like, I mean, I understand the WWE kind of love in and all that, and I'm, you know, I'm with people that want to say that, but I know AEW don't, and I don't want to make this about a company thing at all either, because that's a conversation we could have at a different time for sure. But when we look at certain stars that AEW have now kind of made and promoted and whatnot, I mean, Cody was in, like, you know, 2 to 3 matches of the year over the last, you know, couple of years. I mean, the one with Dustin was just, I mean, that was the best pro wrestling match I've seen in a long time. You know what I mean? The story that was told in that match, you know, I literally just got reminiscence of Brett and Owen at WrestleMania 10. You know what I mean? It was just so fucking beautiful. The match he had with Nick Aldis then, of course.
Yeah, that was good.
That was phenomenal as well. And Cody just reminds me of somebody that is like a mix of someone like a Shawn and a Brett. You know what I mean? A modern day that can mix both styles. He has high flying. He's got star quality about him. You know, he can go with absolutely anybody. So I think Cody is there, but we know him as a star already. But if we look at some breakout stars, I mean, I think Darby Allen had an absolutely breakout year.
Yeah, he's my standout guy from AEW, full stop. Because he's special.
Thank you.
Go beyond all the in-ring stuff. Just his just the way he carries himself.
Yeah.
Not even the look, but the look is great. Like, I love his gimmick, but like his body language, even like the way he jumps up on top of the turnbuckle and everything when he makes his entrance, you know, there's fire and believability in him. Like, you know, you believe in him. Like, even from that mess of a pay-per-view that they had the other night. Sorry, I had to get a jive in, but yeah, I mean, like top to bottom, like some of the other stuff was okay, but it's like AEW to me is like a big. I mean, like what you said is fair. It's a new company, but at the same time, they set some objectives at the start that it was going to be a sports-based, more realistic product and everything. So, okay, you said that from the outset, like, and there just doesn't seem to be any effort to back that up in any regard at all. Like, you know, like
it's all coming from the same man too. I mean, the same man that wants to play fantasy bookers with daddy's money as well. is also in charge of these. So it's not like he can sit back and go, oh, well, look, we probably hired the wrong players, or we again, I don't want to make this into an AEW conversation, but it's worth just kind of mentioning, I suppose.
Yeah,
while we're on it.
100%.
But he's the one that's playing Booker, and we mentioned it on the Podmen the other night. He's the one calling the shots here. He's the one that's promoting these matches. He's the one that's doing this, and oh, well, I got all these dates from Mid-South back in the day, and I'm a big fan of old school pro wrestling. I'm like, no, you just literally read the Wrestling Observer, and you're trying to come across as somebody that knows what they're doing, is what I'm seeing. You know what I mean? It's Eric Bischoff reincarnated.
To a certain degree, for sure. I think Eric was a bit more grounded in what I think the difference
for a while.
For a while. But I think what kind of saved Eric to a degree and the WCW product was the people Eric had around him. They still knew what worked, and
dude, think about it. Ricky Steamboat, Tully Blanchard, fucking Arn Anderson, Jake the Snake. These are all working backstage.
Yeah.
But, what is their actual role? He doesn't have that excuse now, because WCW back then had, which I thought was a great idea, and I know he gets a lot of flack from a lot of people. Kevin Sullivan was the booker, and yet people would say he's not a star. I get that. Kevin Sullivan shouldn't have been booking the big matches. I remember hearing Bret Hart saying Kevin Sullivan would come up to, Sting and Bret and go, "What's your finish?" And Bret would be like, "Fucking none of your business." Whereas Pat Patterson comes up and says, "Hey," then you get credibility. But Kevin Sullivan had a great role in booking the younger guys, like the Juventudes and the Jerichos at the time and the Guerreros. And that's how they got their stock to rise, I suppose.
Exactly. And he was supposed to be very good with finishes then as well, because he was a very, he isn't a household name necessarily or anything like that, but he was very hot during kind of when Florida Championship.
He was a big Florida guy,
yeah, big Florida guy. So that way, business wasn't as mainstream back then, but he was. I mean, he's only 5'7". Kevin Sullivan is, and he played a pretty credible heel.
If even,
yeah, exactly. And he was a credible heel, So, I think he has more credibility than some people think. But I think we were talking about Darby Allen there a second ago. So he really stood out to me in that, pretty much any time I watch AEW, he's the main thing that stands out to me, but just because of how he carries himself, and he kind of makes his in-ring work to his character as well. Some of even the dives and stuff he does them in such a way that works with his character, kind of fits in with that whole Daredevil.
Yeah, they mean
exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So he'd be my standout guy there. But
what about just on Darby Allen before we move along from him? Because the reason he was such a standout guy to me was I was really impressed with him when Jim Ross came out and said the problem with a lot of AEW guys is they don't listen.
Yeah, and he backed him up.
He actually came out and backed him up and said, "Yeah, you got to do that," and that was the likes of fucking Jelly Janela, as Jim Cornette likes to call him.
Oh, yeah.
Joey Janela and all these morons. I mean, Joey Janela has just gone to being a fat guy again because he's got his paycheck. Initially, I was like, I see potential in Joey Janela, because you remember the first kind of few months, he was wearing real wrestler's tights again. He looked like he was trying to get in shape. He was trying to have decent matches. But the problem is, when you're trained by yourself in your own backyard, you can't, because and that's not even a knock on him. That's just the facts. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Then it became, oh, well, I've got my... And you see him trying to cut a promo, and it's like, this is just a guy now who sounds like he's in his backyard, but in front of really high-quality cameras. You know what I mean? And it's like, who is there to filter this stuff out? You know what I mean? Who's there to go, that doesn't work? I mean, Kenny Omega should just always have a mouthpiece, because he can never talk. He can't talk. He can't talk.
Nothing's convincing.
He talks like that, and you're just waiting on him to go jazz fingers every time. it's like, oh my God, I get that you the Ultimate Warrior and all, but at least the Ultimate Warrior was able to make nonsensical promos and make you afraid as a kid.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
You believed it, and plus he was intense. I mean, like there's
Exactly.
probably nobody else ever as fucking intense as he was. Like so,
Nobody.
It didn't necessarily even matter what he said, and plus a lot of his stuff actually did make sense. It's just he always used to use such fancy kind of wording and everything. It's like a lot. Sometimes you'd need a thesaurus beside you to understand what he was saying.
Dexterity.
But like, dexterity and all that.
Dexterity and all, yeah. Sorry.
A truce between destiny and reality, or something.
But that's that. You're on the point, and it's the same with something I noticed that you put on your social media earlier, which is true. It's like Goldberg, right? Goldberg didn't need to fucking say anything other than who's next. Those eyes told the story.
Yep.
It's like when I looked at Goldberg as well. It's like, look, Goldberg was thrown into the lion's den in a lot of ways.
Oh, yeah.
He shouldn't have been working 15-minute matches with someone like Bret Hart that could actually hurt somebody. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And evidently, eventually did hurt somebody. But, good Lord, when you look back in Goldberg's career and you go, right, those shorter matches, they were perfect. They were exactly what they needed to be. And that was good booking. Whereas you're looking at AEW and you're going, right, again, we're not making an AEW show. People are going, yeah, well, when are you going to fucking shut up about it? But no, we're trying to figure out who is standing out from there. And I do think Darby Allen. Who else did you were going to mention? Someone else? Is there anybody else from there? I mean, Hangman Page for me, I see a lot of potential in that guy. And obviously Pac. I'm a huge Pac fan. I mean, he's just fucking awesome. But we have seen enough of him, obviously.
Yeah, no, I love Pac as well. Like, he's a really cool guy as well. I met him in Cork when he was over here. He was cool. But Hangman Page is another guy I really like. The only thing that I think is kind of a pity with Hangman, number one, that he works in that company. But no, sorry, AEW star. But no, I think like the thing I kind of feel bad with him, I just wish he was a little bit bigger. I think that's with certain guys, it doesn't necessarily matter as much now, but I think it would have really helped him be the number one guy, no matter where he is.
Because he has that Magnum TA look about him, but modern
he does.
Day. He has that modern Magnum TA look. He's got the blonde hair. He's like, he doesn't have to have the mustache anymore. No offense, Terry, I love you, but Terry knows Terry knows that mustache wouldn't get over in 2021. But
you never know with the right guy. Well, then again, another wrestler kind of ruined that in the last couple of years, so we won't mention that name.
Yeah, we won't mention that. Yeah. Oh, Jesus H. Christ. Yeah, he definitely doesn't get a mention anymore. Yeah.
No.
Still trying to fucking be a little rat around things. Anyway, well, I mean, you know where I'm coming from, and I think we're both on the same page, and on that sense, like we are both fans of Southern wrestling. We're big fans of the old school NWA. So like that's the first thing I saw. I was like, there's a young, good-looking guy. Fucking, he's not in bad shape, but I would like to see, he's in great shape. But again, I would like to see him with that kind of Randy Orton build. I'd like to see him go away for 6 months and come back with that fucking talk to whoever Drew McIntyre talk to. You know what I mean? Yeah, everyone knows what I mean by this. Go and see his doctor and see how he comes back in that kind of shape. Because
exactly,
good Lord, I mean, he doesn't like the only flippy move he needs to do is that fucking clothesline, that lariat clothesline flipper. If he could still do that, and I guarantee he could still do it holding extra, say, 14 pounds or something, and or 10 pounds even. That would stand. Someone like him.
100%. Yeah, as long if it was lean, like it would lend more credibility to him because he just has the it factor. That kind of intangible.
You're drawn to him.
Yeah. He just he has a great name. His work looks good. I think the only thing he needs. In an ideal world, I'd like to see him in WWE. Like if Vince at his best, at his clearest, pushing him, in the right way, I mean, the sky would be the freaking limit.
I think so. He'd be in the mix within a year or two. He'd be in the mix without a shadow of a doubt. I would like,
absolutely,
for anybody that hasn't read the books Preacher, the comic books Preacher, it's a really cool, and there'll be a lot of people that do know what I'm talking about, but I would love to see him, if he was playing a heel gimmick, to come out with like a guy who was like a preacher from Texas as his spokesperson. You know what I mean? That kind
of, I hear you.
Just something a little bit different. Give him that little kind of dark side, is what I mean.
Yeah.
I would like
maybe
to see
somebody kind of like the James Mitchell type, but with more of a southern type of swag to them or something. There you go.
There you go. See, this is why we should have the pencil, Jono. We should have.
Just saying.
Saying, Tony.
I'm ready to sign wherever you want me to sign.
Tony, I'm fucking here for you, brother.
No, Vince, I'm here for Vince. No,
I'm here for Tony. I'm here for Tony. I'm always a champion of the underdog, so I want to. But then again, if Vince wants me,
they're richer than Vince.
Well, but look, if Vince wants me too.
We'll do a tag team on it, man.
We will. But some of the guys that stand out, like, I suppose we can talk about the people that stand out to us, but I mean, if we are essentially boiling it down to who we consider to be the top guys on the planet at the moment, in the big leagues, of course, there's plenty of great guys and girls out there. On the indies as well. But if we're talking about it right now, on the 9th of March, 2021, who is Jonathan's 5 guys that you're saying they're the best right now?
For me, I'm not sure if I'm putting these in order. I think I'll put
no particular order. Yeah. Just in general.
I think for Roman is the first one. Him and Drew are the first ones that come into my head immediately. Anyway, I mean, Roman, since he's come back, has just been amazing.
Well, I'm in agreement with you. Yeah, I'm in agreement.
Yeah, he's been just... and like, one thing that I want to point out with him that I love so much, that I think he probably has... he's doing better than anybody, with a long time as well. He's taking his freaking time in the ring. I mean, he owns the ring when he's in there.
Slows everything down, yeah.
Yeah, he just owns it. He has a confidence in there, and that's what I used to love about Brett as well, is he would just let you digest everything. But Roman just has, his whole body language has changed, and that whole head of the table thing. I mean, he kind of embodies that when he's in the ring. Like, he really is the shit when he's in there, and the only critique with him as well, similar to the Balor thing, the only critique with him is that fucking Superman punch. I hate it so much. Like, he I really liked it at the start, but he just overdid it so much where it'd be like 5 times.
You're definitely nitpicky about moves, aren't you? It's little things that annoy you, like.
Yeah, like if they look soft. I just hate anything that looks soft, and if it's overdone. Like, the thing is, I really liked that move at the start. I thought it was different. It had kind of a good gimmicky vibe to it, and he made it look good at the start, but then he would do it like 5 times in one match, and then he started kind of changing it to a kind of a forearm where you would see it go past the guy's chin, and it just looks terrible, and it doesn't fit his character anymore. I'm not sure if he doesn't much anymore, but that's my only thing. But otherwise, I mean, he's about as complete as you can get. Facial expressions, acting, his body language, the solidness of his work, just that ferocity in the ring, that kind of ferociousness as well. Like, he's very believable. Drew, pretty much all the same reasons, and he's just carried the company so well through the pandemic era and had so many really good matches with Lashley and Rollins last year, Orton. I mean, he's been brilliant. Brock when he won the title. AJ, I mean, AJ's in my best ever list as well. So freaking good, and especially as another guy like we were talking about with Kevin Sullivan earlier on. For a guy, AJ's about 5'9", 5'10", maybe. That goes out the window when he's in there, because he's so ferocious and so, like, everything he does, he does with intent. You know, when he's throwing that phenomenal forearm, he really throws it in like, you know, he's trying to hurt somebody. Even when he does a suplex or anything he does, there's just such intent behind it. And I freaking love that. And the facial expressions. You know, he's a guy like you were mentioning earlier on about guys really feeling, you know, like, or really, you know, expressing like they really want to win, or disappointment when they lose, or frustration when things aren't going their way in the match. I mean, he's just, he's the poster boy for that, like out of the guys that's there at the moment, and with a long time, like, but I really feel
he's the bridge between he is like the perfect mesh of Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart, right?
Yeah, 100%. You know, in some ways, I would nearly even put him just, I mean, Shawn has it above him in terms of longevity and those kind of things, and maybe, you know, the big match scale, like, you know, the WrestleMania match scale and all that type of thing. But in terms of just in-ring work, I think AJ might even be just that little bit better than Shawn, because AJ doesn't do some of the... Did you lose me there?
No, you're on.
AJ doesn't do some of the kind of silly things that Shawn would do every so often. Some of the silly selling and, you know, that type of thing like that. That used to kind of bug me every so often.
You're not allowed to say that about Shawn. You know that.
Oh yeah.
But on Dynamo's dozen, you're fucking are allowed to say it.
Yeah. I mean, like, again, Shawn, he's one of the absolute best ever. Like, there's no denying that. But like, yeah, certain things at times, like, you know, could have done without. Like, you know, I hate, like, Bret was such a great seller. I mean, you just believed everything that Bret did, and that's kind of my benchmark in terms of the workers that I love. It doesn't necessarily matter about the moves. Like, I think Hulk Hogan's one of the greatest workers of all time.
Me too.
Because he didn't. Yeah, like, I mean, he's selling, everything was just top notch, and he made you care, and he didn't do anything
similarities
stupid.
with Bret and sorry, there was a 10-second delay or something there. I'm not too sure. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. What are you going to say?
Yeah, no, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, but that's just what I was saying about Hogan in those terms. Like, you know, the moveset or whatever, like, he never did anything stupid. You know, you can say what you will about, like, but like, that was just getting the crowd engaged and all of that. Like, and that's fine. I mean, he's just after kicking a guy in the face. You know, you can take a few seconds to, you know, whatever. Like, you know, you can get over that. But yeah, so I don't like when guys do silly, stupid stuff that kind of takes me out of the suspension of disbelief. And AJ he just, like, everything he does has the utmost realism to it, and he's phenomenal, as he says. So, like, he's high up there. You know, I couldn't, it'd be hard pressed to put anybody ahead of him either. So, like, they're kind of all on the same scale for me, like McIntyre, Roman, AJ, Finn, and I'm just trying to think as somebody that's really stepped up in the last couple of months in that whole storyline with Roman is Jey Uso. He's been fucking excellent. He's been absolutely awesome. Yeah, he's been great. I mean, like, there's obvious names like Daniel Bryan. He's awesome. Cesaro's great. I mean, there's lots of other guys. Bray Wyatt is excellent in terms of, like, you know, working in terms of working your style around your character and everything like that. Like, but in terms of somebody that's really stepped up in terms of their character and their in-ring work, I mean, Jey Uso has been a revelation in the last couple of months. Yeah. Lashley is another guy who's shone like anything in the last year. He's really grown into what his potential always was. Like, you know, he's really hitting that front, like,
filling that kind of Brock Lloyd void almost, you know.
Exactly, yeah, 100%, and kind of with his own kind of uniqueness to it then as well, like, you know. So he has such presence, and it's just all coming together because he always had, you know, good in-ring ability for a guy his size and everything. Yeah. What he kind of lacked was just that ferociousness, like we were talking about with some of the other guys. You know, he came across a little timid and a little awkward at times, and I think that's gone, and he's really hit his stride in terms of knowing who he is and working accordingly to it. Like, so they'd probably be my main guys: AJ, Roman, Drew, Lashley, and AJ.
Okay, nice. I like that.
What you got?
Well, no, I mean, in terms of this year, yeah, absolutely. I would be, you know, Drew, you know, who I lucky enough to have known and had a friendship with for sure. Love that guy anyway. So seeing his success has been a personal pleasure as well as being a professional watching it on screen.
Yeah.
Um,
I just plug this. I just need to plug this in one sec.
Roman has just been, he's been the biggest turnaround for sure. He's kind of like become the anti-hero type character, which I think is phenomenal. For me, Finn, pound for pound, like I said already, without a doubt, the best. AJ, you're never going to hear me say a bad word about. I think AJ is. I don't think AJ has ever missed a beat. And to be honest with you, I want to see a main event at WrestleMania one day. If you ask me my dream main event, it's Finn and AJ. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It's the battle of the Bullet Club leaders. I don't know how they will do that, and I hope one day, that someone will do something with them in a main event, or even just in a Wrestling Mania fucking moment. Just those two need to have a WrestleMania match for sure. I don't know why they've been waiting to pull the trigger on this. I mean, it has to happen. I think we both know. We all know, the world knows that Finn will be coming back up to the main roster soon. There's no way that he's not. I think that's the net, and I think that's going to happen within the next couple of months, because we can see that, I mean, when you've got Finn Balor and Conor McGregor bantering on Facebook, something's going to happen, right?
100%. It has to.
Something's going to happen. So I think Vince has seen now, okay, this kid's a fucking star, and I think, obviously he's going to pass the belt back to Adam Cole. I'd imagine that's the next step.
Probably, yeah.
I'd imagine that's the next step. I think that's what the whole finish of the takeover was. That's just my prediction anyway. I'm sure you agree. Yay or nay? Probably.
Yeah, I most likely. And just in terms of the main roster, when Finn comes back up, I'd love to see him put with Paul Heyman. I think,
dude, I think he's everything. They could make him everything that CM Punk was. 100%.
Yeah.
Everything, because he can talk and he's learned how to talk and have that dark side down in NXT. He's become a much better talker. Anyone, like, we'll all tell you anything. If ever Fergal was ever given a breaking the fourth wall here, but if it was the only thing that people would ever say was like, oh, Mike's skills probably not there. Who knows? They put him in that Brett kind of category,
Yes.
And you're like, but then you remember 1997 Brett, different Brett.
Exactly. You give him something real to work off of.
Give him something that's in the way of a frustration to kind of comment about. Do you know what I mean? Because as human beings, we all want to bitch and moan, That's a given, especially in pandemic time. And I think without a shadow of a doubt, I could see him get to that main event level again, for sure.
And I think putting him with somebody like Heyman would give him that confidence on the mic as well, because like you have one of the best promo guys in the history of the business beside you that can kind of cover for anything that you might be insecure about or anything like that, and they can kind of bounce off of each other. I think that would be so good for him those regards, in terms of really drawing that out of him. And Heyman could start off the promo airing a grievance about, something, like Balor not getting his just due or something like that. And, Balor follows that up then as well. I think that could be a really awesome pairing that really brings him to the next level, because I would like to see him come up as a heel. I'd like to see him as a heel first. And
well, definitely on the main roster, that should be it, because it's like, I've been down there taking care of business and now I'm here to fucking take care of business. And the reason that I'm not saying this because, oh, it's a lad from Bray. I'm saying this because all the signs are leading to that. They sent Edge down to do a promo, and looking at Edge saying, what you do, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he basically was saying that what you do is just unbelievable. You know what I mean? So, I mean, he's getting the rub from the guy that's going to main event WrestleMania now as well. That's telling me that, like, and nothing happens without Vince's approval. You know what I mean? Vince would rather send Fergal down to NXT rather than fire the guy and go back in the indies and say, right, let him go back down there, see what he can do, see if he can stay healthy for the full year. And like, people don't realize this, like none of Finn's injuries have been of any fault of his own. He got his jaw broken because one guy broke it. You know,
Yeah.
When you're putting your face out there for someone to break a jaw, it's going to happen. Like,
yeah, for sure. Yeah.
You know, these aren't niggling ligament injuries or anything like that that happened, you know, unfortunately. So, same with the shoulder injury with Seth Rollins. You know what I mean? That was just, you know,
it was a dumb move to do. Like, really, wasn't it?
Seth Rollins' fault, and like, the sooner the better people realize that.
Yeah.
You know, so also Irish are still bitter about it, as you know. But like, I suppose the rest of the guys listening here going, "Shut up, Dynamo." So that's okay. And I love Seth Rollins. I mean, he needs a big year next year as well, I think. But no, that would be my guys. So I would agree with you. I would say Drew. I would say Roman. I would say Finn. I would definitely say Randy, because I mean, he had a big year with Edge in
yes.
kind of bringing Edge back into the fold and making Edge such a beloved character again. Not that would have been a hard thing to do, but I think he played his part in it. He also played his part in really getting Drew over, I think. So, you know, a lot of the dirty work was done by Randy Orton. And is that 5? So we've got Roman, Randy, Finn, Drew, and okay, so one more slot left. So I suppose I would say, yeah, I mean, I would probably have to give it to, because of the amount of work that they do as well. You know, I could give it to an AEW guy, to be fair, but you know, I think Darby Allen's the best breakout star. But I think if we're talking about amount of work done, I suppose I would probably have to give it to. Probably have to give it to Lashley, yeah, because Lashley has made himself like that main event now. You know what I mean? He's ready for main event at WrestleMania now.
Exactly.
He's done the hard work to get there. You know what I mean?
And it's all coming together now. Yeah. Like, you know, it just everything. Like, it's all. I think a lot of it was just a matter of giving him, just putting him in that place. You know, it wasn't necessarily anything that he was lacking. I think he needed to get put in that position and let you take the handcuffs off of him and just leave him shine, like, you know, in that position. I mean, having MVP.
Coaching. It's good coaching, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, having all that around him, I think, has helped. But yeah, he's just become everything that he had the potential to be, and it's awesome to see as well. Like, you know, I wanted to see that with so long. Like, you know, you've probably gathered from like talking to me and everything. Like, I'm a big fan of the big guys. You know, I like the guys that kind of have that bigger than life vibe to them. Like, I think that, you know, when they're at their best, I think they are kind of what makes the business peak. You know, you do need those special heavyweights, I think. Yeah. And you need to balance it out, obviously, with other great guys and everything. Like, but so I think the business, other than Brock, it's been lacking that with quite a while. I think there was too much of a shift in the other direction, you know, trying to implement the smaller guys and the great workers, and, you know, trying to pacify the internet wrestling fans. And I think it went too far afield that way for too long. And so it's nice to see. I mean, McIntyre's a really big guy, Lashley, so it's great. Roman, it's great kind of seeing them at the top again.
See, the best way to do it, like, in closing, this would be my closing argument for it. Like, the best way to do it, I suppose, is when we think of the great moments in professional wrestling when the smaller guy eventually did win it. And like, these guys weren't so small back in the day in terms of stature, but like Eddie Guerrero, when he eventually did win that big one, the belt, or Jericho win the big one against, you know, Austin and The Rock.
Yeah.
They were smaller in terms of like height. They weren't necessarily smaller in terms of fucking stature. These were still put together guys.
Absolutely.
And look, I think Balor's size is understated. I think it's ridiculous that people, because he's a tall guy, but he's ripped, he's chiseled. He looks like a Dynamite Kid, you know what I mean? He's chiseled from fucking granite. And he doesn't look out of place against some of the guys. I mean, we saw him against Roman. Like, he doesn't look out of place. It's not he doesn't. You know what I mean? It's not like if he was in there against someone like Hulk Hogan back in the the 80s or 90s, yes, he would look out of place. But even Ultimate Warrior looked out of place against Hulk Hogan when you look at the two of them standing side by side. It's only when you have an older eye you go, oh my God, Hogan was actually twice the size of him. It's meant, you know what I mean? So
absolutely.
And I think
some of that is to do with presence as well. I think. Exactly. I mean, Finn has a good presence and his work is credible, so you don't notice those things. Like I think it's like the thing with Warrior and Hogan where you were saying, because I actually noticed that as well not too long ago when I was watching it back. It's like, Jesus, Hogan is actually a fair bit bigger there, but like you wouldn't notice that before because Warrior's personality and presence, and he was so fucking chiseled then as well. Like, and same with Finn. I mean, Finn is so chiseled to the bone. I mean, his shape is absolutely incredible.
That's what I mean.
So, that's one of the reasons
you know what I mean. He's like a mini warrior. If he was to just go around going like that, you were like, Jesus Christ, man, that's a big guy. It's only
exactly.
So, and I think now the way the shift is moving, and I think you're 100% correct in what you say, is that now that we're back to the kind of big men on top, it does lend itself for someone like a Finn or an AJ or whoever to come up and actually challenge some of these bigger guys with a different kind of character and a different visceral, you know what I mean? And a different...
Exactly. And it'll mean more for them to win it then as well, because you haven't seen it for a while. It's meant nothing when, I mean, it kind of did when Daniel Bryan won, but at the same time, like kind of since then, you've seen it. You've seen Owens as champion. You've seen who else?
Look, was Daniel
Rollins isn't necessarily Rollins isn't a smaller guy, but like there's a few others. So like. Yeah, it'll make it mean something again for that to happen.
Exactly. Like when CM Punk was champ, right? When we saw CM Punk stand side by side by The Rock, you were looking and like CM Punk's arm looked like, a string beside The Rock.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when they're in the ring, that's only when they have clothes on. When they're in the ring and they're actually doing their thing, it's not. It takes away from it. It's all about the moves. I mean, CM Punk had a great match with the Undertaker. Look at the size difference there. Bret Hart had a great match, 1997 SummerSlam with Undertaker. I mean, it's all about how they use the smarts to kind of get, and so this whole thing of like only little men can't wrestle big men. No, that's stupid. It's really stupid. Shawn Michaels.
That's one of the best stories that there is, like the whole David Goliath thing.
That's it. I mean, when I first got into the wrestling business, that was the first thing I was always like, right, if I was wrestling a big man, I was like, this is going to be a David versus Goliath storyline. But even though I'm the heel, I'm going to be dirty David, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to be good Goliath. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
It's so easy to manipulate. So, but look, that's I think that's about all we have time for. This has been a great show, man. Like I've really enjoyed kind of shooting the shit, talking about this with you.
Yeah, me too, man. It's actually flown by. How long has this been now? Nearly an hour, I'd say.
I'd say so. I'd say well over. It's a standard on the Dynamos, doesn't? Yeah, we end up talking and we don't stop.
yeah, no, it's cool. No, I really enjoyed it. Like, and I think we're on the same page with a lot of things as well. Like, and I like your perspective on the business, and like, you have the background as a worker as well. So, like, I love your perspective, and like, your insights are always really thoughtful and everything. So I really like that. So yeah, I've loved talking to you, man. It's been awesome.
I appreciate it. Well, look, we should probably do this once a month or so and talk about different things. You know what I mean? I think that's kind of cool. We did mention that we're going to do a lot more crossover shows. So we've seen a lot more of our two heads beside each other with our caps. Either on backwards or...
One doesn't want to be known as CM Punk and the other one is just balding prematurely.
No, it's been awesome, dude. And what we'll do is we'll definitely I think we'll do another show in the build up to WrestleMania. Obviously, I'm going to be appearing on your show next week.
Yep.
So that's going to be cool. And I'm sure this will be out beforehand. So do you want to give people a preview of what we're going to be talking about on your show, or are you going to keep that secret? I don't mind.
I've actually because I have a couple of things lined up. Oh yeah, it was the Mount Rushmore of. Sorry, I just got mixed up in my head. Yeah, we're going to be talking about who are Mount Rushmore wrestlers are from wrestling history. Like, so yeah, we'll be talking about that on Pro Wrestling Defined sometime in the within the next week or so, anyway, in the next couple of days, hopefully. So yeah, that'll be coming. Who we think has had the most influence in the history of the business, like, so it'll be a Mount Rushmore in those terms. So yeah, look out for that on Pro Wrestling Defined on YouTube soon.
My fans definitely already know one person that's on it. He might have wore pink and black, I don't know, but they know that anyway, so it's a given.
I just can't narrow it down, man. Can't narrow it down.
But the rest, as they say, is open to interpretation, because even though we've done one before, we don't know whether I could change. Like I say, this is always subject to change. You always have that one or two guys that are on Mount Rushmore without fucking question. But then you've always got one or two that you're like, maybe that could change now.
Well, there'll be one on mine that I might be leaving out that, you know, people might go, really? You know, so
that's nice.
Sometimes I just like doing that to F with people as well. Like, you know, that was half of the reason for putting the Miz in there tonight. Like, you know,
we'll dangle that.
We'll see.
But look, it's been phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, go and check out Jonathan, of course, on Pro Wrestling Defined, which is on YouTube. And we're always doing cross promotion. Anything that you'll see links to his channel, of course, once we share this particular podcast as well. And as always, support Irish podcasts, and especially pro wrestling podcasting. Let's all, well, not all of them, but that's a different story for a different day. But please do support each other if you want to hit us up with any kind of comments on you know, suggestions or stuff like that. Always open to suggestions here. Anybody, of course, for the Dynamo Podcast Network that has an idea for a podcast, that wants a clean, easy road into the podcasting world, do get in touch with us as well, because we can always help you out there. And of course, don't forget our sponsors, Wrestling Mania, still open for business even during a pandemic. If you need something in the way of wrestling merch delivered to you, it will be delivered to you. All you need to do is get in touch with either of us, and we can send you on to Niall, and you'll be hooked up 100%. But Jonathan, absolute pleasure, my brother.
Been awesome, my friend. Been excellent. Really enjoyed it, man.
Really enjoyed it, my friend. Really enjoyed it.